Hello, and thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you. My name is Tricia Pena-Webb, and I've been here in Nashville since 1987. Before that, I was born and raised outside of Atlanta. Actually, when I first moved here to Nashville, I lived in Antioch, and I thought, well, that's an unusual name for a town. So I looked it up, and I found out that it was the biblical word for one side brick, three sides vinyl. Well, for most of my adult life, I've been studying some type of metaphysical work. I was born Catholic, so I ended up with a sort of Catholic version of Wicca. And I've been talking to a lot of people here and found out that there's a lot of ex-Catholics around, so we'll probably get along just fine. Anyway, the whole basis of what I've been striving towards is just how to get the things that I want in my life. I've never been one to sit around and just have somebody else do it for me. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 19, and basically I've been supporting myself ever since. And I just turned 40 this year, so yay, happy birthday to me. I've just never had things just handed to me. And, I know how to work hard, and I don't have a problem with that. I've always known that we're responsible for ourselves. Each one of us. We're responsible for our own happiness, responsible for our own existence. At first, it was just on the mundane level, paying bills and taking care of things that you say you're going to do. But then I started learning more, and that's what I want to work with you on today. I've actually found that we can manifest our own lives. And we can manifest in our own lives much, much more than we think we can. I've learned these certain laws of the universe, universal laws, which means that they are unchanging. And it's kind of like the law of gravity. You don't really understand how it works, but you obey it, just the same. I mean, how can you not? Well, the laws that I'm speaking of here, just like that, they are universal. And you don't really even have to understand how they work, because they just do. But using universal laws, you'll be able to manifest much, much more into your life than you ever thought you possibly could. And that brings us to the title of this interaction today. You get what you think about, whether you want it or not. And basically, what that is, in a nutshell, is the laws of attraction. Everything here, without getting into quantum physics or things that are just too, deep to get into here, is that everything in the universe is made of energy. When Einstein came up with E equals mc squared, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, what that boils down to is that energy and mass are convertible. Energy and stuff are convertible into each other. If you just fool around with the formulas, enough. This chair here, it's a moving energy. It's moving at a rate that we really can't perceive, but it's energy just the same. And take this example of us shaking hands. What you and I see are two distinct hands touching. But if we were to look at that handshake under an electron microscope and magnify it over and over and over, we would eventually lose the distinction between the two hands and just see an exchange of energy waves. It's just an illusion of how we're all connected, that we may not be touching, we may not be in the same room, which is how distant healing works, but because the intent is there, and we connect with our intent. In the same way as our thought waves. You've seen enough medical shows or movies or whatever to know that brain waves are energy. They are electric. They're electricity. And that energy can be converted into other things, and that is the exciting part. That is what I want to talk about. How you get what you think about. that's easier to see sometimes in other people than in ourselves. Let me give you a couple examples, and then maybe you can understand what I'm trying to say. Do you have a girlfriend or a relative or someone else that's close to you who is always miserable, just always miserable, always looking at the bad parts of things? Nothing ever works out for me. Well, I'll try for this job, but I probably won't get it, so why bother? And I never get what I want. Well, most of the time it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. They say they're going to be miserable, and guess what? They are. I've got someone like that. I've got a couple people in my life that are like that. I have a grandmother. My grandmother hates everything. My grandmother lived the majority of her life on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi back in the 60s and 70s, at least that part that I remember. This is way back before they had the casinos, the riverboats, and the gambling and everything. I remember visiting when I was a preteen or teenager, and there's not a lot to do in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi in the 70s, at least not for a kid. But my grandmother blamed everything in her life on my mother being born. My mother was an only child. She was a straight-A student, never got in trouble or did anything wrong, but I guess her existence was just too much for grandmother for some reason. And she would only talk about how everything was wrong and how everything is just, awful in her life. She just knew that my grandfather was cheating on her. Though, we all think that was in her mind. And personally, I think he drank himself to death just to escape her. And now that she's alone, she continues this miserable streak, and nothing you can say or do will change it. Primarily, now it's her health and all the things that are wrong with her. If you ask her, how you doing? How are you? She will tell you in vivid detail all her vitals and all of what's wrong with her. And yet, with all the health issues she has, she doesn't think that the doctors know anything. And she doesn't think that they know what they're talking about, and she will actually argue with them because she read something in Prevention magazine, so she knows exactly, how to diagnose herself. My mother's actually had to call doctors back and apologize for grandmother's behavior. Of course, she doesn't have any friends, as people who do try to be nice to her eventually just give up and they just go away. You just give up after a while because nothing pleases people like that. And I know you have to know someone in your life that nothing you can do makes them happy. That's because they have set out in their life, they have practiced these thoughts so much that I am miserable, I am miserable, I am miserable, that yes, they are. And they are really good at it too, because they've been practicing it their whole life. Now, using the same laws and the same science, you can turn that around though. And if you practice good thoughts, you can get really good at that too. The biblical scholar Hillel said back in 400 BC, "Guard your thoughts, for they become your words. Guard your words, for they become your actions. Guard your actions, for they become your habits. Guard your habits, for they become your character. And guard your character, for it becomes your destiny." In short, your thoughts become your destiny. My grandmother is certainly proving this, and we are all proving it. We are all living what we have been thinking until now. Now that we've talked, with a negative outlook or use a negative example, well, we talk about more a positive one. I have a full-time job at a company here in Nashville, and I've been at that company for 15 and a half years. And I'm also in the computer field, and that is an unheard of amount of time to stay in one company, especially in IT. But for years and years and years, I've always talked about my job positively and the company I work for. I've been grateful for it, and I've told myself, because I really believe it, that I'm working for a great company. I've got the world's easiest job. Every year I get a little raise, but the work gets easier, and they love me there, and if a person's got to have a real job, this isn't a bad one to have. I don't sit around and say that every single day, but when I describe it to other people, mostly, and now, of course, I practice those positive thoughts much more since I know, how powerful they can be. I truly vibrate that inside, which we'll talk about that later, but I really feel it. And again, it has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's true. And until I become a self-made millionaire, I will probably stay at that company because it has worked out great for both of us. And that's just one small way to see that your thoughts do become your destiny. Now, to just take it just a step further, once you learn that, the way it happens, that everything is energy, or is convertible to energy, we down here on Earth, all of us, are not just individual little people. Once we die, that's the end of our existence. The part here on Earth is just the physical part of us. There is a much, much bigger, broader perspective out there in the universe, somewhere out there. And depending on how you look at it and what you want to think about it, we are all part of the universe. And we are all part of God. We are all part of God, but sometimes I'll say universe instead of the word God, because sometimes the word God has can carry some really heavy emotional baggage or just be too emotionally loaded. So I usually say universe, or all that is, or your inner being, and you can just substitute the word that you rather hear. But anyway, I believe that God is in each one of us, that God is all over. He's not just sitting on some cloud up there like Santa Claus watching down on us. He or it, all that is all part of the universe and part of us, and is inside each one of us. You don't need to go to a priest or a minister or whatever to talk to God for you. That's one of the things that came really easily, and it wasn't really a struggle for me to believe, because I've always believed that you can just talk to God straight. You don't need a middleman, because when it comes down to it, He is inside all of us. The Spirit of God, the universe, is inside all of us already. So of course we can talk to Him. I've always believed that, and now that they're starting to have more scientific evidence to back it up, it's always made sense to me to have a personal relationship to God, and so do you. You have a personal relationship with God, and you and everyone else in this building. And it's as personal as you want it to be. We are all part of this. My energy touching your energy, and all the energy of the people here, at this gathering today. Of course, right now we've got a lot of good, positive energy going on because of all the people here, whether they thought about it consciously or not. They came here, what they thought of was, I want to come here and learn and grow and expand. And that's the whole reason we're here in the world, is to grow and expand and to enjoy the physicalness around us. And know that we are all energy, and this energy is interchangeable and expandable. That's one thing, you cannot get rid of energy. It just changes into another form. So what we're here to talk about today is how do we change that into the form that we want it to be in. Now that we know that we are all energy, and we have access to all this great energy that's in the universe, not just the energy that is us personally, but access to all the energy in the universe. How do we harness that? Well, we harness it with our thoughts. Hence the first part of my little saying here, that you get what you think about. We had, a positive example and a negative example. One of the things, to be a little more specific, I was talking about my job and how over the years it's worked out so well. It's a great job if somebody's got to have a real job. You continue that a little further in that you can use the same line of reasoning for everything else in your life. I said earlier in my introduction that I didn't expect anyone to give me anything or to make me happy. That I'm responsible for myself, and I'm responsible for my own happiness. I'm responsible for how I look at the world. Another person cannot make you happy. You have to be happy yourself. You may be happy to be with that person or be happy to be in that relationship, but they are not actually the one making you happy. The only one who has any control over how happy or unhappy you are is you. And the way to do that is to concentrate consciously on being happy. Even Abraham Lincoln said, "People are just about as happy as they make their minds up to be." And how do you do that? You surround yourself with positive cues, with things that make you feel good. Because when you project out positiveness, and again, it's the same thing, works the same way if you're negative, you're going to project out what your dominant vibration is, what your dominant thought is. But the positive people uplift. The negative people are draining, at least in my experience they are. I had this girlfriend, her name was Robin, and she used to call me and complain about her job and talk about how lonely she was because she had gotten a divorce several years ago from her high school sweetheart, the only person she'd ever really dated. And so now she's in her mid-30s and she wants to have a baby. She's one of these who cries when she sees babies in the mall. She has practiced those thoughts so much that they have become her destiny, at least up to this point. You couldn't get off the phone with her. Usually it was like a 2-hour thing. And if it was just asking advice, or if she was trying to figure out some concrete steps of working things out or something like that, I'd talk to her all day long. I mean, I'm a life coach and I'm good at giving constructive advice and ideas and to help her start thinking of what it is that she wants. But that's not the reason she calls. She calls just because she wants to vent. Which all that is really is just practicing those thoughts over and over again. Or when she would ask for some real advice, I'd give her some books or CDs, whatever I thought would help translate what I was trying to say. And so I'd ask her, well, the next time I talked to her, I said, did you listen to the CD? Well, no. Did you get a chance to look at the book I gave you? No. So, you can't do it for anyone else. But anyway, what I mean to say here is that she was just draining. She was just draining it out of me. And one of the things that I find now is that I'm not attracting negativeness like that in my life. And because of that, she rarely calls me anymore. I know she's still around because I get these emails from her every week or so, passing on one of those "you're special to me" kind of chain letters, but I'll take that over being drained any day. I don't attract the negativity because I've told myself that I want to feel good today. Even the name of my website is Good to Feel Good, because I want to emphasize how important feeling good is. You have to feel good first before anything that you want can come to you. You have to feel good, and you have to be accepting of your good also. And sometimes that can be very hard for people to accept their own good. It is imperative that you that you surround yourself with positiveness and eliminate as many negatives as possible, because the more negatives that you eliminate, the less they start trying to show up in your existence in the first place. You're not inviting them in. So your life does get smoother and it gets more on track, because you're not expecting those negatives, or they're not, gumming it up. One of the easiest ways to do this is just to not watch the news. Don't watch the TV news. Now with 24-hour-a-day news and CNN and talk radio, horrible talk radio with all those people yelling back and forth, we are bombarding ourselves with so much information that we were never equipped to handle. And I'd venture to say 95% or more of the news is negative. We were not built to process that much stuff that really has nothing to do with us on a personal level. We were meant to take care of ourselves, our families, our communities and neighborhoods, but not use up energy worrying about something halfway around the world. I know that may not be a popular stance right now, but honestly, unless you've got a family member or something involved in these wars, this stuff halfway around the world doesn't really affect you. If it's important enough, you will find out about it. Your friends will tell you about it, but you don't have to watch the news and all these details, all the little gory details that they tell you, to feel like you've got to keep up with everything that's going on in every corner of the world. But try this. Try for a week not watching the evening news. I can't remember the last time I watched news on TV. I do read the paper, but I don't read most of the A section in our local one here, because again, it's talking about all those things that are going on everywhere else, and the murders and the things like that. And you don't need to read pages and pages of accounts of murders and crimes and scandals. And when was the last time you saw something uplifting on the front page? Take 1 week, take a week. That's my assignment to you. Take a news fast for a week, and I will bet that you will feel lighter. Now, surrounding ourselves with positive things, one of the things that you can do, and I still do this every day, is I tell myself that I am going to feel good today. I am only going to see what I want to see. I'm only going to hear what I want to hear, and I'm only going to do what I want to do. And you do it in the present tense. You don't do it in the future tense. You say, I only hear what I want to hear. I only see what I want to see. I only feel what I want to feel, and I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. It is good to feel good. And that just gets you psyched up for the day. I'm not saying that you're never ever going to have anything in your life that ever disagrees with you ever. Of course you might, but it's not going to be the same way. It's not going to be this extraneous, detailing, newsy kind of negatives that all it does is bring you down. That's certainly not going to help achieve your goals, and it doesn't help you feel better. The negatives that you might run into, and negative may be kind of a harsher word, let's just say, a contrast that you might run into, that helps you focus more on what you want. You know that that's not what you want in your life, so you're going to concentrate on something else instead. So getting back to what it is that you want, you can use this in a very general way, but also the universe works much better if you give it specific. I bought my very first house in 1996, and I was very proud of it because I hadn't done it all by myself. And it was fine for me, but because it was a small house, it was just too small for more than one person. So of course, I go and screw it all up by meeting this wonderful guy and getting married a couple years later. His stuff and my stuff was just too much stuff for this little house. So we started talking about what we wanted in our next house. We just thought about the things that we would want in this house that would make us happy. We said we wanted at least 3 bedrooms, at least 2.5 baths, at least 2,000 square foot, hopefully a little more than that. 2-car garage, just enough yard for our 3 little dogs. We have Chinese crested hairless little doggies. We wanted a yard just enough for them, but not too much a yard to take care of. A separate dining room, a fireplace, an eat-in kitchen would be nice, and a finished den or basement or something like that, because my husband was looking for something that he could turn into kind of like a sports bar looking thing. And we had a price that we wanted to pay. We didn't even know if we could get all that for that price. But now, see, that's pretty specific. The only thing we didn't do was like pick colors. So you know what we ended up with just about a month later? A 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, 2,500 square feet. Got a 2-car garage, fenced-in doggy yard, a fireplace, a dining room, an eat-in kitchen, and a den that my husband has turned into his guy room sports bar thing. And it was just $1,000 more than the price that we had thought of. But again, it's just as an example, but it's showing you how you set out with something concrete, with exactly what you want. Even before we looked at the market, we just knew exactly what we wanted, what would make us happy, at this point in our lives, or at that point in our lives, and we found it. And that is about the most deliberate creation. And that's another term that we can use for what we're doing today, is studying deliberate creation. You know how to create. You may not have realized that you have been creating your whole life all this time. My business card even says something like, to live the life that you want to live deliberately. Because you have been creating your life all this time, but now that you know a little bit more about it, how you can turn it into more of what you really want it to be. You are creating your life by the things that you think, by your self-talk. And this is one thing that especially women have to do. Sometimes there's a lot of negative self-talk that's pushed into us, and we just got to get out of that. In an average day, we have approximately 65,000 waking thoughts. And of those 65,000 thoughts, how many do you think are positive and uplifting, wonderful thoughts? And how many do you think are negative? That things that come from your past or your environment or even mass consciousness. Let's get back to the news thing. Most people have an average of just about 15,000 seconds of positive, uplifting, joyful thoughts a day. And that leaves 50,000 seconds of dense, negative thoughts. Many, if not most of them, are just rote, their habit. No wonder pessimism rules. We've got to change the ratios around. We've got to learn to practice the good thoughts. We're already experts at listening to the bad ones. So many negative thoughts have been hammered into us since we were children about deservedness. And yes, it's okay to go after the things you want to go after. You just have to start eliminating the 50,000 habitual, routine, negative thoughts that just flow so easily into our minds, and consciously think of positive ones instead. Catch yourself and consciously replace the negative thought, the bad thought, the self-loathing thought with a loving one. Say you want a better job and you keep telling yourself, well, I can't do that, or all these other negative things that we tell ourselves, that we don't have enough education, we're just not good enough, we don't deserve it, we don't deserve it. That's a biggie there. Whether something as simple as our parents telling us when we were little that we can't do something right because we made a mistake, we start saying, see, I can't do anything right. Everyone has said that, because somebody in our life at some point has told us that we can't do anything right, and that got stuck in that tape recorder in our brain. 20, 30, 40 years later, we're still replaying that same tape, which is a shame. We have to catch the habitual negative thoughts and replace them. Say, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do anything I want to do. I can do anything I set my mind towards. Yes, it takes time, but think of how much time it took for the old thoughts to get in there, how much you've been practicing those. It took a lot of time for those things to sink in, so it's going to take some time to reverse them back. But you can reverse it. And also, positives work much faster and are more powerful than negatives, so reversing the trend of thinking poorly about yourself or your abilities and turning it into thinking what an incredible person you are, it is doable. You can do it. So now we know that we've been creating our lives all this time. We just go another step now and learn to create it consciously, deliberately. Like attracts like, which is the first law of the universe, the law of attraction. You get more of what you think about. Our thoughts expand. They expand into the universe, into this energy. So if you're thinking love, or you're thinking positiveness, or you're thinking happiness, those thoughts grow. Conversely, if you're thinking negatively, if you're thinking about sickness, or you're thinking miserable, those thoughts can grow too. And while we've been talking a lot about non-physical things, emotions, happiness, or love, or you can, in the same way, start manifesting what it is that you want physically. Just like we created that house. Yes, that house was 9 years old, and it had been sitting out in Hermitage all that time, and we didn't know about it until we had decided we wanted it. And there it was. You can take your thoughts and create with them. Everything on this earth started with a thought first. Before somebody invented something or made something, they had to think about it first. It had to be a thought first. Manifestation follows thought. Both are neutral and free of opinion, or there's no right or wrong thought. They're just thoughts as far as the universe is concerned. So it acts on it, and your energy is what fuels all thought and all manifestation. Whether it's another job, or whether it's a relationship, or whether it's something physical, like a car or a house, you manifest these things by being specific and by being vibrationally aligned with. One of the most popular desires, and I guess one of the most basic ones, is, of course, for money. I want to be rich. Well, if you look at it, in some parts of the world, if we were to go over there with the money that we make in our jobs, here, we would indeed already be rich. So you have to be more specific. You have to say what it is. Let's say that you're wanting to make, $10,000 a month. And to you, that would take care of the things that you want. And that's fine. Your goals are your goals, and there's no right or wrong in that. You just focus. You focus upon, I make $10,000 a month consistently and easily every month. I make $10,000 a month easily and consistently every month. And you tell yourself that over and over, and you believe it. Record it if you want. Put it on a tape or a CD. I make subliminal CDs, and I record these affirmations, which basically that is what that is. So I can play it over and over. Things like that do help your self-talk. They really do, because you are listening to yourself say positive things to yourself and about yourself. And that slowly will edge out those negative ones. You concentrate on that. But now, don't get discouraged if next month comes and you haven't made the $10,000 yet. I mean, there is a time-space thing we have to worry about. This is what you just have to do. Now, there's a couple ways that we can get in our way when it comes to manifesting. The first one is that we really don't believe that we can get what we're asking for. Yeah, I can say, I want to make $10,000 a month. That's fine. That's the other thing. You don't say that you want to do it. I want to do this. I want to do that. You don't want to really say the word want in these kind of thoughts, or concentrate on the word want, because that's emphasizing to the universe the wanting of the thing, not the thing itself. Since you're focusing on the wanting of it, the lack of it presently in your life, that's what the universe would give back to you. More wanting and more lack. So you want to say that whatever it is that you already have it, or that you're already doing it, not that you're noticing the lack of it not being there. So when you're doing your self-talk, you have to do it in positives and in the present. Don't say, I want to be a millionaire. Say that I am a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I make $100,000 a month. Whatever it is. But you say it in the present. And you also don't say it with a negative. There's a little bit of controversy, but pretty much most people think that the universe doesn't really hear the word no. The universe doesn't work in words, like we know them, because all these different languages and everything. It works more in how we're vibrating about the subject, what we really, really feel about the subject, how strong our vibration is towards what we're thinking about. So if you say, I don't want to be sick, which is a common one, or I don't want to get cancer, the universe doesn't really hear the I don't want this part. It really hears the word cancer, because that's where your vibration is in that sentence. You say you don't want it, and I believe you 100% that you don't want it. But you are so vibrating about cancer, say, in this example, that is what the universe picks up on. I neglected to mention earlier when I was talking about my girlfriend Robin, she actually made herself physically sick. She had ovarian cancer. While it's being treated, I find it just a bit ironic that she manifested ovarian cancer rather than anything else. But, it makes sense. She's so worried about not having a baby. Her father died about 5 years previous to that from a long cancer brought on by smoking, and she watched his suffering, and she really hadn't gotten over it. So, cancer. It was such a strong part of her being. That, and coupled with the constant worrying about not having children, manifested the ovarian cancer. Now, I know it's just my theory, I'm not a doctor or anything. It just made sense to me. But anyway, the universe does not hear the word no. It just feels what you are vibrating. And by vibrating, I mean putting sincere, strong emotion behind it. If you just say, or if you ask people, okay, so you say you want to be a millionaire. What are you going to do with that money? And they all say the same thing. I'm going to pay off my debts and buy a house, give it to charity, or give some to charity. Okay, well, now what? Most people don't literally need $1 million for those goals. And this is where the specificness comes in. $1 million to most of us is just a vague concept. And because it's so vague, we aren't really emotional about it. Not enough to start vibrating specifically. But if you start vibrating and start thinking, look at all the things I could do with more money. I could go on a cruise. I could pay the house off. I can buy a house for my parents. I'll have time to sit down and write the great American novel that I haven't had a chance to write yet. I'll do volunteer work. I'll go to the symphony. I'll travel around the world. And if you fill yourself with more concrete thoughts, not actually the amounts of money, because that's just getting a little too technical, but just fill yourself with the positive thoughts of what those experiences will bring you and how you'll feel doing it when you're skiing the Alps or whatever it is that you would do if you had the chance. And if you make yourself this rich fantasy life of what you're going to do with this money once you get it, or how your life is going to be once you get it, you make yourself this wonderful fantasy life and live in it every night before you go to bed, or every morning before you actually get up. Give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to bask in the feeling of what these dreams give you. For as you do so, you are adding fuel to your vibration. Live in this wonderful fantasy life and let it make you happy. Because if you have these happy thoughts and if you have these happy feelings about what you want, they'll start melding together, and the universe will know that, gee, doing all this traveling, for example, makes her happy, so let's give her some of that. Because you are being very specific. Back in 1976, there was an aspiring actor and a He was an ex-bodybuilder, and he was asked, what he planned to do next. "I'm going to be the #1 box office star in Hollywood," he said. Well, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger managed to achieve that, and a little bit more. When Jim Carrey first came to Hollywood, he sat under that big Hollywood sign, you see on the hill there. Sat there and thought about his career and the career that he wanted. And right there, he wrote himself a check for $20 million. And he dated it 3 years ahead. By the time the date on that check rolled around, he was earning $20 million a movie. Now, both struggled against tremendous odds to realize their visions, but because they were both deliberate and specific in their intentions, and they wholly believed they already possessed in their mind, heart, and soul what they had yet to manifest physically. When we get to the second part now of our premise, whether you want it or not, I think now you can start seeing what I'm talking about. That's why you only focus on what you truly want to attract. Because if you're focusing on cancer, like we talked about earlier, or on an illness, whether that you're afraid you're going to get it, or that something that you already have now, or you focus on worry and guilt are two of the biggest time wasters, because neither one can do you any good. Guilt is obsessing over something in the past that you can't change, and worry is obsessing about problems that haven't even happened yet, and you don't even know if they're going to happen. The only time that we have is now. Everything you do is in the now. You can't do an action in the past. You can't do an action in the future. You can only do it now. So there's no need to obsess either about the past or the future. So if you stop doing both of these, worry and guilt, you free up a whole lot of time to feel good. And that's what we need to do. We need to feel good. We need to feel good. It is good to feel good. That's what we're here for. Some people confuse being close to God with struggling and sacrifice. Or you say you want to be a good person, but a good person doesn't worry about things like wealth. Well, who said that? It's not in the Bible, as a lot of people think. The often misquoted line from 1 Timothy is, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." Not that money is the root, the love of money. And in this case, love meaning obsessive disregard for anything else. We were put on this earth to enjoy it. And if you believe that God and the universe is inside of you, you can glorify that by letting Him live through you to enjoy all the beautiful things that this world has to offer. Otherwise, why would we even be here? And the way things have evolved in this world, well, we need money to secure a lot of those things. So it's not at all sinful to desire money, to desire wealth. We have been taught, especially women again, though I hope not as much today as it used to be, that we were taught that money is crass and thinking about it somehow lowers us. Since money is our exchange, money is energy too, and it only has the value that we put into it. Money both builds churches and finances wars, so it depends on what you do with it. One of the easiest things you can do to have more money flow to you isn't, don't laugh, it's to be grateful for your bills. That may sound a little ludicrous on the surface, but just give me a second here. Someone, whether it was a utility company or the credit card people, they fronted you either money or services on trust. They trust that you are going to pay them back for what they gave you first. And credit cards, gee, it's been drilled into us. Don't have debts, don't have debts, don't have debts. So here's a better spin on it. Someone at the credit card company thought enough about you to give you access to thousands of dollars now because they trust that you will pay them back in the future. You had to have been in a good place when you got that credit card. And I'm not saying it's fine to go and, max them all out and all that, but just don't beat yourself up because you have some debt. Next time you pay your bills, write a little thank you on that little line on the checks and say, or if you do it on the computer, say thank you as you pay that bill. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you, NES, for the electricity I had last month. It really came in handy. Sometimes, though, it may not look like things are manifesting as quickly as we would like. Or, how come we didn't make that $10,000 last month? Because that's what we were concentrating on. Remember, the universe doesn't hear the word no, and not understanding what you mean by that. What the universe works on really is vibrations. If you're truly wanting what you were wanting with great emotion behind it, then it will manifest at some point. It will. We do get impatient. But sometimes we want something either because we should want it, or it sounded good at the time, or this is what is expected of us, but we don't really feel it. And the universe picks up on that. It's not going to give you something you're not really emotional about. So what you can say is it picks up on what is really resonating inside of you. So if you want to make that amount of money, but deep down you feel that you don't deserve it, or you have fears handling that much money, whether you realize it or not, you are actually resisting it. Take a look at the majority of people who win like a big lottery, millions of dollars. Usually, I think what the study is like 5 years later, they're usually in worse shape than they were before. That's because even though they got all this infusion of cash, it didn't change them on the inside. They were not ready to be wealthy on the inside. It really didn't resonate with them because that is not what they were feeling. It was lack is what was much more familiar. So even though they got this, they didn't change inside. So the lack was much more familiar to them, and that's what they kept vibrating. So eventually it came back. So the universe is pretty smart. It'll give you what you're vibrating. So to get something other than what you already have, you have to change your vibration. So if your dominant vibration is to be happy, number one, that is what the universe will give you. So you have to be vibrating inside it. You have to resonate inside with the desires and feel strong emotions toward these desires. You have to believe you deserve them. That's what the universe feels, and that's what you will attract. And you can change your situation and your relationships just by changing the focus. Think of couples that you might know where one or both of them are complaining about the shortcomings of the other one, their imperfections. Rarely will you see such couples grow closer over time. But there has to be something good about that person. Even if it's something silly like one of them is a good cook, or they keep the car running well, or they're great at cutting the grass. If you want a better relationship, start dwelling on those positives, even if they don't seem to be like the big biggies. We all know he's a slob, or that he watches football all day on Sunday. But he also remembers your birthday, or he's a good father, or he's nice to your mother. Dwell on those things, and you will see slowly but surely that the things that bothered you either don't happen as much or they don't bother you as much, because you're not attracting them anymore. You're not concentrating on them, so you're not attracting them. And it's all appreciation, and your appreciation is being rewarded because like attracts like, and you are attracting more good things in the relationship than bad. Anything that's positive, that's where you put your focus, and I guarantee you that that relationship will get better than you ever thought it could. Another thing, it's both for men and women, but women especially, that I want to mention is, because there's mostly women here, is that we have to take care of ourselves first. We have to learn to be selfish. And selfish isn't a bad thing. Selfish just means that you're doing what you need to do to take care of you. I like to use the example of when you go on an airplane and you look at that safety brochure that they have where they tell you how you can use your seat as a flotation device. Well, there's also instructions in there telling parents put on their own oxygen mask before they put it on their children. And that's a great analogy, because you have to take care of yourself before you can be any good to anyone else. The best way to take care of yourself is to not deny yourself the pleasures that you usually do. To know that you are worth it. All these other people that depend upon you or that you're responsible for, you don't take care of them instead of taking care of you. You can do it for a little while. We all do it in an emergency or whatever, but you'll burn out because you have not been nurturing yourself, and you don't have any nurturing to fall back on. And that's hard for a lot of women here, especially because that goes against everything we learned from our usually self-sacrificing mother. There we go with all the negative conditioning from childhood. See, it's still there. We're so used to saying that we'll do everything else we need to do first, and after we've taken care of everyone else first, then we'll take care of ourselves. I've done it, and I'm sure a lot of you've done it. You take care of the kids, and then you take care of the husband, and then you maybe take care of your parents, or you take care of the house, and then your job, if you've got a job too. And then maybe you will sit down for 5 minutes and read a magazine. Fortunately, we've got those priorities backwards. We don't realize how important it is to take care of ourselves. That's just something else to tell yourself with your self-talk, is that I am important, I am special, and my desires are important, and it is okay to be selfish. It is. One more point that I want to make about manifesting. Say you set out and you say that you want to make that $10,000 a month we've been talking about. Well, don't sit around dwelling or worrying about how it's going to happen. If you already knew how it was going to happen, then it'd already be happening. But this is when you have to let go, and you have to trust that the universe hears you, and then you have to get out of your own way. And that's what we do so much. We get in our own way. Let's say you want something specific. Let's say you want a car. Say, I want a new car. But if the thought right after you saying, I want a new car, is, but I can't afford a new car, then you just canceled out the desire. Just put into the universe, I choose to have that new car, and let it be. Don't sit there and try to figure out how you're going to get the money to pay for the car. That's the universe's job. Let the universe do that for you. I know of somebody who really wanted one of those PT Cruisers, little old-fashioned cars. That was her dream car. And she sent out her desires to the universe that was her car. She'd look at them in the car lots, and soon she was seeing them more in traffic every day. And she didn't tell anybody about this dream of hers, but the universe knew, because she was very specific about it in her heart. Then one day, out of the blue, her biological father comes back into her life. He had left when she was a child, and it was a little awkward at first, but they got back reacquainted and eventually forged some type of, friendship again. And one day he asked to meet her somewhere, so he was overjoyed with the way that they were relating again. And he said he wanted to do something for her that he didn't get to do when she was a teenager. And he presented her with a surprise, which was a brand new PT Cruiser. Now, of course, in her wildest dreams, she never thought that she'd get the manifestation that way. The man wasn't even in her life when she thought about the car. But she didn't put limits on how. She let the universe handle it. So don't try to figure out the universe's part in this. Let it handle it. It's pretty smart, and it's coming from a much broader perspective than just ours here. Your job is to make the request and then make yourself open to receiving it. You don't know how the money's going to come for that new car, so don't dwell on the money part of it. Just bask in the new car smell, visit showrooms and take test drives, and read up in the car magazines, and appreciate all the cars of the same model that you want, that you see in traffic, that you see on the road. That is what you concentrate on, the having, not the getting. Own it already in your heart, and be open to receiving it. Believe it. And sometimes that does take guts. Sure, it's easy to say, oh, sure, that would be so nice. But if you do it in like this wishy-washy, daydreamy kind of way, with no real emotion, attachment behind it, there's nothing wrong with daydreaming, because that makes you feel good, and like we said, it is good to feel good. But it's not going to necessarily bring you the thing that you want concretely, because you're not really believing it's going to happen. You've still got that little doubt in there. You have to really believe in these laws. Believe it's going to happen, and then get out of your own way. Don't put up a resistance for something that you want. Allow this goodness, allow the things that the universe will bring you if you'll only get out of your own way. Now let me ask you this. If you had an ironclad guarantee that you would get your heart's greatest desire, what first step would you take in manifesting that? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And so I say to you now, take that first step into your new, deliberately created life today. You've seen how you can focus on what you don't want and how easily you get it, maybe sometimes even easier than what you do want. So think only about what you want, and don't dwell one moment on what you don't want. Just remember, you get what you think about, whether you want it or not.